Coming up on this special edition of the ICT Newscast, we pay tribute to the brave men and women who made the ultimate sacrifice in the U.S. military. Join us for inspiring stories that honor these remarkable heroes and their unbreakable spirit. Next on the ICT Newscast.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
Support for the ICT Newscast with Aaliyah Chavez comes from the Arizona PBS studios in Phoenix at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communications at Arizona State University.
Amirawa Hopa, thank you for joining us. I am Aaliyah Chavez. Today we honor the heroic contributions of Native Americans who gave their lives to the U.S. military, from the legendary code talkers to artists who captured their war experiences. We celebrate their legacy and sacrifice. Native Americans represent a higher rate of military service than any other ethnicity in the U.S. Code talkers were an integral part of service, using Indigenous languages as indecipherable codes against the enemy. More than 200 code talkers were from South Dakota tribes. Don Loudner, a veteran from Crow Creek, worked with U.S. Senator Mike Rounds to establish the American Indian Veterans Association. Our partners at SDPB have this story from Larry Rohr and Tim Davison.
You got a letter in the mail. So I came back to the house and said, you drafted. So then went to church that Sunday, and my grandparents and I said that, along with our families, 14 of us cousins all volunteered to go. She says, your turn.
Don Loudner grew up in Fort Thompson, and to him, "It's your turn" meant continuing a tradition to serve the country in the military as a native-speaking code talker during the Korean War.
We were trained, and if we were needed, we were there to become code talkers.
Native American code talkers were the individuals who spoke very well in their native tongue, and in doing so, they could communicate across radio lines and so forth without the concern of the Germans or the Japanese being able to intercept and know what the commands were or the directions being told were. So these code talkers during World War II, in particular, really saved a lot of American lives. But it was a case of where, after years of the United States government trying to make young Native Americans not speak their native language, it seems ironic that speaking their native language became one way in which they really contributed to the success of our Army operations.
In his role both as governor and senator, Mike Rounds is part of this story of military service from the Crow Creek tribe, as are many others, like tribal chairman Peter Lenkeek.
You know, the very first code talker ever come from here in the end of World War I. His name was Sam Crow. That's when they were first gonna, start looking into that program. And then, of course, World War II came, and they kind of refined it a little bit, and they took my grandfather from here, made him a code talker. His name was Edmund St. John. I've talked to other code talkers here in South Dakota, because all these reservations, we all have code talkers on them.
These unique language duties are just one part of the deep commitment to military service among tribal members.
We here at Fort Thompson, we have a level of service unrivaled amongst our tribes, amongst other ethnicities that are present here in the United States. It's common knowledge that Indigenous people volunteer at a higher rate than any other ethnicity in this country, and it's more so here. We have a high service level here.
Even at age 93, Don Loudner is still a tireless advocate for veterans. He still represents over 500 recognized tribes in the U.S., working to achieve a charter to work directly with the Veterans Administration.
Well, would that be important?
Yeah.
because nobody's telling you the needs, issues, concerns that the Indians have that are maybe different than what the VFW and DAV and them all have.
My dad, when he introduced me to Donnie, one thing he wanted was, is there any way you could help us get this charter put together and get it in? But this year, with the help of Ben Ray Lujan, a member of the Senate from New Mexico, we were able to get it into the National Defense Authorization Act, passed. The President signed it into law, and now our Native American veterans have their charter as well.
It's a charter that made history, because there has never before been an organization like this to receive a federal charter. And to give it to the National American Indian Veterans Association is huge, really huge.
Two things, I think. First, our Native American tribes were never defeated in battle. They were treaty tribes, very proud of their heritage. Second of all, they are a warrior society. They appreciated courage, and that carries through in the traditions today.
We have a dedication, a loyalty to the greater good of all. As a warrior, as a Dakota warrior, and I was raised that way as a warrior.
Visiting with family and relatives will help us from feeling lonely or socially isolated. COVID-19 changed everything, like our ancestors who survived war, famine, and epidemics. Our elders had to make sacrifices too. The more we are socially connected with our family and community, the less health problems we will have and the longer we will live. We need to stay active to keep our spirits alive. Remember, you are not alone. Connected together, we will stand strong. For more information on elder isolation or caregiver resources, go to connectedindigenousElders.org.
Native Americans have a long tradition of documenting their lives and heroics through art. From rock drawings on buffalo hide and ledger books, accounts of battles have been proven to be historically accurate. Brummett Echohawk documented his battles in World War II with sketches and paint. He fought in Italy in the 45th Infantry. Thousands of visitors saw his work at the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum in Oklahoma City. ICT's Shirley Snavy was there.
It tells a story, it tells an incredibly powerful story of the Indians who served in World War II, many of them with the 45th, 2 Medal of Honor recipients, Native Americans from the 45th. And it's nice, it's nice to think my grandfather knew them, and he was one of them and served valiantly.
This exhibit is called Nations at War, and it is an exhibit documenting the field sketches and the history of Brummett Echohawk's experience in World War II as a member of the 45th Infantry Division. And what makes this so unique and so just amazing is the fact that he sketched his experiences in war, and it's something that we've never documented before, and we haven't seen anything like it. And coming from an Oklahoman, coming from a Pawnee, and he really is a historian in that he documents a lot of these sketches, he says who's there, and he describes these scenes that you see in the exhibit. And more than that, he puts himself in an historical context in his place in history, in Pawnee history, but also as a soldier, and then later as an artist.
The drawings themselves as documents of the Italian campaign in World War II. Typically, the Italian campaign isn't much discussed in World War II, and the 45th Division, Brummett Echohawk in particular, documents this important history. And in terms of historical memory, also for the Italians who don't know much about the history of the 45th. And we currently have an exhibit going on simultaneously of the copies of these images at the Operation Avalanche Museum in Eboli, the province of Salerno. And they're fascinated to learn about this Native American history, the landing, their role in the liberation of the Italian peninsula.
I went to Italy in September to what is called the Operation Avalanche Museum in that small town of Eboli on the 80th anniversary of the Allies landing in Italy. And we're very proud as a family and a tribe that my Uncle Brummett was part of the 45th Infantry Division, the Thunderbirds.
This is my grandfather, Phil Gover, and his Pawnee name is Uktarut Lesharu, means shield chief. He was a soldier in the 45th Infantry in World War II. As you can see, he's lost an arm, and he lost it at Venafro in Italy, fighting with the 45th.
He's talking about Pawnee warrior traditions, and he has some amazing quotes that go alongside that instead of a headdress, I carry a helmet. Instead of a bow and arrow, I use an M1, and I will write and draw a battle as I see it, as I lived it. And that's what these drawings do, is they show his experiences firsthand, and are just an amazing primary resource.
Younger generations don't even know about World War II. I mean, we think about war so differently now, and we see war on television. But there was a time when we sent people to war to liberate others. And it feels like that's not what we do anymore. So it's just very powerful.
The exhibition is closed, but there's a book of the artist's work from the University of Oklahoma Press. Brummett Echo Hawk's work is in the collections of the Smithsonian and Gilcrease and others.
We are all children born of water. It is where all life begins. Water embraces and protects us. We revere it in our homes. We need to live close to water. It nourishes and cleanses us. All living things know this. Sometimes water is gentle and floats in the air. Sometimes water is harsh and powerful. Sometimes it catches the sun's rays. Water changes with the seasons, alive and always moving, even when no one is looking. Water is patient. Water endures. Water brings clarity. Water purifies our thoughts. Water brings us together. Water is holy. Water helps us heal. Water is medicine.
Samuel Sandoval has died at the age of 98. He enlisted in the U.S. Marine Corps in 1943. Sandoval was one of the original 29 Navajo code talkers, responsible for developing the unbreakable code used across the Pacific during World War II. Journalist Shondine Silversmith wrote about this remarkable man, and she joins us today. Welcome, Shondine.
Hi, thank you for having me.
For our viewers who are needing some refresher, tell us about the Navajo code talkers and their role in World War II.
Yes, so the Navajo code talkers were originated in 1942. There were 29 original code talkers that were recruited by the U.S. Marine Corps, and they participated in all assaults for the U.S. Marines led in the Pacific from 1942 to 1945. And their role is they use the Diné language to develop unbreakable codes to transmit between each other to help communicate during World War II. So it was really interesting because they were the most successful code talkers. And when the U.S. Marines realized how successful they became, and how well these codes were transmitted, that's when they just started recruiting more. And then eventually over 400 Navajo men would be recruited as Navajo code talkers, and that included Sam Sandoval and the 3 remaining who are still alive, which include John Kinsel, Peter McDonald, and Thomas Begay.
I mean, talking about the legacy of Sam Sandoval, as you mentioned, what kind of loss does this mean for the Navajo Nation and for Native people across the country?
I think one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that when the Navajo code talkers were discharged during World War II, they didn't get to talk about their service in the beginning. They had to keep it a secret until it was declassified. And even when it was declassified, a lot of them didn't want to talk about their service. None of them started coming forward until probably about the 70s or 80s to even start sharing their stories. And then when Navajo Code Talker Day was declared by Ronald Reagan in the 1980s, that's when more people across the country realized who these men were and the significant role they played in World War II, because they were responsible for transmitting this unbreakable code, but they also had to develop it. They developed this code themselves because there were no words in the Diné language to translate into tank or aircraft or any of those type of military terms or tactics. So I think when people understand who the Navajo Code Talkers are and start reading and learning about who they are and who they were, they'll realize that they played a significant role in history, and that in itself impacts the Navajo Nation because it represents who they are as a people and the role that they played in this country.
Absolutely. What can you tell us about Sam Sandoval and his story?
So Sam Sandoval, he passed away at 98, but he was 18 when he enrolled in the military in 1943. And one of the interesting things is he enrolled after he graduated from high school, but the only reason why he enrolled is because he had encounters with other Marines while he was out working. And that kind of inspired him to want to go enroll. So he jumped on a train and went to the recruiting depot and then got shipped off to California in 1943. And after he completed basic training, he said that him and all of the other Navajo men who were completing basic training were then gathered and taken to Camp Pendleton. And then when he entered the barracks, he saw all of these other Navajo soldiers, and it kind of didn't dawn on him until they all said, this is what you're going to be doing. You are going to be developing this Navajo code, and you are going to help them. So one of the things that he mentioned, he's all, when I walked into those barracks, he's all, those were the original 29 code talkers. They were there developing the code. And then when we walked in, we had to help them. He's all, so that was our goal. And he's all, and that did not occur to me. He's all, I didn't know that was what's going to happen. So and a lot of them kind of have that similar story. A lot of them were enrolled in the military not knowing that they were going to be a Navajo code talker. I know that Thomas Begay said when he originally enrolled in the Marines, he wanted to be an air gunner, and then they transferred him to the code talker program, and then he's like, okay. So it's just really interesting. When I did the reporting at the time, there were 5 living code talkers that included Vanderveer, Sam Sandoval, Thomas Begay, Peter McDonald, and John Kinsel. And being able to sit down with all 5 of them at the time was amazing, just to hear their stories. It's kind of like just sitting down with your grandfather and listening to them talk about their life and share their stories. So it's something that I will remember for the rest of my life as a reporter, because it was really nice to just hear them share something that I'm sure they've told many people before, and still kind of feels the same for them. It feels good to be able to share, like, this is the role that I played in World War II, and it's nice to know that people still want to hear it. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Well, I've loved learning about their story, and thank you so much for your reporting, Shondine. Our next story is about an Anishinaabe man who joins the ranks of other Native American veterans that have been given the distinct honor of having their names on U.S. Navy ships. In 2023, Nisqually citizen and Marine Billy Frank Jr. and Simpson citizen and Navy SEAL Sol Atkinson were given the honor. Last week, Navy officials announced its next Navajo-class ship will be named after James D. Fairbanks. The White Earth Ojibwe citizen served in both the U.S. Navy and Marine Corps, and he was the first Native person to ever serve as Force Master Chief Petty Officer, which is the highest-ranking enlisted Navy Seabee. I spoke with Minnesota Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan after she attended a Washington, D.C. dedication ceremony. Take a look. Lieutenant Governor, you are fresh off of your trip to Washington, D.C. for this huge honor. Tell us what the trip was like and the atmosphere of the event.
It was so powerful to be in this space. So we were at the National Museum of the American Indian, and we're able to honor just this incredible man. Force Master Chief James, or Jimmy Fairbanks, as people called him, was a member of the White Earth Nation, and was really a highly decorated warrior. So for me to be able to be there in this space with his family, with his sister, with the tribal chairman and the rest of the council, and with the governor, was incredibly powerful. We've been serving in the military for an incredibly long time. We serve in higher numbers than any other racial or ethnic group, and having this recognition, it is overdue. So it felt like an opportunity for celebration, but candidly an opportunity for healing in many ways too.
You mentioned that Master Chief Fairbanks' sister was there. What were the conversations like with her about the recognition for her family? And what did she say that her brother's reaction would have been if he were still around to receive this honor?
She was incredibly kind and gracious and humble, and it sounds like that is what runs in the family. He was a man who's absolutely dedicated to service. And the thing that we heard over and over again from people who knew him was how he didn't expect to get the credit when he did the work. He just showed up and did the work to care for people and for the community. And I think that's powerful. We opened the ceremony in a good way with a prayer and a song, and the things that continued to really just come up were the 7 grandfather teachings, and how he lived those out every single day. But it sounds like, again, he was a pretty humble man, but also the Navy knows how to do ceremony. Boy, like it was, I think so. Being a Seabee and being, this leader in the Navy, I think would have also probably appreciated just the pomp and circumstance of this ceremony. It was, again, quite powerful, very moving, but it just was really special. And I think the last thing that I'll say about, like, one of the things that I found so moving is one of the things that the governor said he said, here we are in this space. I'm the governor from, Minnesota with my lieutenant governor, who's a member of the White Earth Nation, but also representing a state where the largest mass execution in this country's history occurred in Mankato, the Dakota 38+2. And he said, but the quarry rock that built the National Museum of the American Indian came from Mankato, the very community, right, where that mass hanging occurred. And so, again, coming back to just this notion of the recognition, but also the healing that is occurring. And I think things like this will continue to help us heal when we're recognized and we're truly seen, I think, and honored for the commitment and sacrifice of our men and women who are warriors.
That is a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives, and thank you to our veterans for your service.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.